Very often we swing to an extreme where we say, oh, you know what? I have done so much of analysis, so much of data collection, so much of looking at the data. I need to show them how smart I am. It's not about how smart you are, it's about what decisions you can actually influence. The simple rule that I have always followed, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, is do presentations that are fact based but not fact filled.
Welcome to MRII's Insights and Innovators podcast, where we talk to top market research professionals to get their inside stories about innovative and enduring best practices. Now, here's your host for today's episode.
Welcome to today's episode, Letters to the Next Generation, Letters from a Life in Insights. I'm your host, Z Johnson. Our guest, Stan Sthanunathan, has spent his storied career at the helm of insights functions at companies like Unilever, before that, Coca-Cola, shaping not just business strategy, but the entire field of consumer insights. Today, he joins us to reflect on the lessons he's learned and what he hopes to pass on to the next generation of insights leaders. We are confident that you, our listeners, will benefit from Stan's perspective. Welcome, Stan, and thanks for being with us today for what promises to be a terrific podcast episode.
Thank you, Z. Really looking forward to it.
So, you've had an extraordinary 40-year career. Looking back, what were a few moments or decisions that shaped your path most significantly?
It's one thing that I learned pretty early on in my life is to capitalize on nothing to lose moments. Very early on, I can give you an example of one moment, where I was in the agency side of the business and we were pitching for a very large usage and attitude study, which was probably one of the biggest projects going on in that year. And I was up against some of the real luminaries of the insights industry at that point of time. And my boss was not in town, and my title was a princely senior research executive. And when I was pitching with the prospective client, the client obviously got offended by the fact that my agency did not send their managing director or CEO to pitch for that project, but instead they sent me. And all the other agencies were represented by the CEOs and managing directors. So the client asked me, don't you have any senior people in your company? And I looked at him for a minute and I said, wow, that's a good nothing to lose moment because I've lost the project because he's got this thing that we don't take him seriously. I said, let me roll the dice and take a big risk. And I told him, that's a great question, Mr. So and so. But have you asked the other agencies who's actually going to do the work if you commission them? Do you know who's going to do it? In our agency, our philosophy is to send the person who's going to do the work. If you like me, you're going to see me for the rest of the project. If you don't like me, then don't give it to me. But do you know who you're going to be working with in the other agencies? He looked at me like that for some time and he said, okay, that's a fair point, and I'll come back to you. And then that afternoon, we got a call from that client saying that we've been awarded the project. And that was probably the single largest project that we got from that agency. That's what I mean by identifying a nothing to lose moment and leveraging it, because if the payoff is there, it's going to be huge. But if it is not there, in any case, you have nothing to lose.
I love that. That's fantastic. Was there someone along the way who made a particular impact on you as a mentor or a guide?
Oh, there are lots of people. I think, the one person, after I joined Coke, this person made an incredible impact on me. He was my line manager in the Middle East. That's where I started my career with Coke. He had a very disarming way of telling you that you have not done enough thinking and your story is not very well researched. But the way he used to say it, you used to feel good about the fact that he's actually finding fault with you. It's only later on you realize that actually he called you an idiot, but you didn't feel that way at that point of time. But because he does it so beautifully, I used to come back home and say, I have to now prove that he's right. And he's wrong. So and I used to come back and do a really, really thorough analysis, go tell him a story, and he used to be equally effusive in the way he praises you. And that's when I realized that, look, you can give negative feedback, but you can do it in a way in which you don't destroy someone, but you actually build that person's confidence. And this person forever changed my life in terms of how much I started trusting myself. And that's very important.
I love that. If you could go back to the beginning, what's one thing you wish someone had told you about a career in insights?
It's an interesting one. I wish somebody had told me that you should take pride in the function.
Hmm.
The mindset was, you are in service business. You're supposed to answer clients' questions and keep clients happy and get more and more business from them.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line, all that is important, but you got to have pride in what you do. If you don't have pride in what you do, you don't know when you are in a servicing mode and when you are in a subservient mode. And very easily you can move from service mode to a subservient mode. And that is a confidence destroyer.
Yeah.
And, and the only thing that prevents you from getting into that transition is pride in the function. You got to be happy about the fact that you are doing one of the most intellectual jobs. You are doing one of the most critical jobs. You're putting consumer at the end of all the business decisions that are being taken by businesses. There is nothing that is more important. How do you have pride in that? And how do you wake up every day in the morning and say that I am so glad I'm in the insights function?
That's great. Yeah, we have a really cool function, and it's a very important function. We
It
should take
is.
more pride in that. Yeah.
It is. It is. And we sometimes forget that. We ourselves forget that. And then how do
Yeah.
you expect somebody else to, give you respect when you yourself don't have pride in your own function?
Yeah. What's a lesson you had to learn the hard way?
What's a lesson that I had to learn the hard way? Again, I can bring it to life in the form of a really interesting story. Uh, the one lesson that I had to learn the hard way is how do you develop a backbone? Yeah.
Mm,
And how do you muster up enough guts to say what is right? Yeah. And that's not easy because when the client pays you money and if the news is not good, it's very difficult to actually deliver the bad news uh, and still get the money from the client for that.
yeah.
So, so it is actually very, and the client could be an internal stakeholder, or it could be your research agency client, or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
for me, the best example that comes to my mind is, but again, I leverage that nothing to lose moment, so to say. Yeah, I presented a massive customer satisfaction study. Those were the days when you know things were physical questionnaires and you had to fill it out with hand and stuff like that. Yeah, they were not telephone aided interview or computer aided interview.
Yeah.
And we finished the whole study, presented the whole findings to that client. The client really loved the findings and they said, "Well done, Stan. Great job. Thank you so much." And I came back to the office and my data analysis manager turned around and told me, "Oops, I think I made a small mistake." I said, "What is it?" I said, "I reversed the scale at the time of analysis." So that 1 to 5 scale, one being very dissatisfied, actually in his analysis, it actually stood for one being very satisfied.
Oh no.
So the whole findings are exactly the opposite.
Oh
Now
no.
this is come to Jesus moment, right?
Yeah.
So I sat there and thought for a while, and I said, okay, what do I do? I can keep quiet, and if the client takes a decision and things don't go right, you can always say, your execution is bad, and you gotta lip-topped your way out of it. But I felt that that is not the right thing to do, and that's when I mustered up guts and called the client and said, hey. I want to come back and represent the whole thing. So, and give me 2 days time. So the client said, why? It was very convincing. I mean, we are very clear about what actions we want to take. I said, no, 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 please don't take action. Wait for me for 2 more days. And 2 days later, I went and presented. And the client obviously noticed that, the whole story had got changed quite a bit. He asked me
Really?
which one is right. So I said, obviously the second one. Then he said, why? I said, if it is not the right one, then I wouldn't have come back. If the first one was the right one, I would have told you take decisions. Then he thought for a while and he said, listen, for what you have done, I can fire your agency and not pay you the balance 50%. And I said, absolutely right. you're well within your rights to do that. But also remember that I could have kept quiet and you would have never known. And I did not do that. So he thought for a while and he turned around and said, I really admire your honesty and directness. Thank you so much. And I trust you much more now because of what you have done the second time around than anything else. I said, okay, thank you so much. We shook hands and we worked out. And that client subsequently became one of our top three clients in that agency side. So guts is something that you'll have to really think about. You have to stand up for what is right,
Yeah.
and that can you can never go wrong with that. So you know,
Yep.
leverage nothing to lose moment, display guts, and do it consistently and stand up for what is right.
Yeah. Yeah. So now we're going to pivot a little bit.
Mhm.
And what to you defines great insights work? And how has that definition evolved over time?
Now, my definition, which I've been using for the last 10 years, is it's very simple. An insight is something that is retrospectively self-evident. And both the words are very critical, retrospective and self evident. So if I come and tell you, Z, this is an insight, you should turn around and tell me, duh, that's obvious to me, Stan. Then I ask you, was it obvious to you before I told you? And then you turn around and say, maybe not. Then you have a big insight because you had that penny dropping aha moment. So that's what a good insight is. But an insight, cannot be just an artifact, which you get excited about. It has to have, impact on changing the trajectory of a business. If it doesn't do that, it's a great information. Park it. Maybe at some point of time it might be useful, but always subject it to business relevance before you actually present it to a client.
Yeah.
That would be my definition of insights. But honestly, when I started my career, I wish somebody had told me what an insight is because I was in search of an insight for a very long time. I'm pretty sure I presented decent insights, but I did not know that they were insights at that point of time.
Right. You've long championed the power of storytelling. How did you learn to influence business decisions through insight? And what advice would you give others trying to do the same?
Well, you know, um, when I was born and brought up in Bombay, in India, yeah, and I have always remembered one thing from my childhood, and that is some wonderful stories that my grandmom used to tell me.
Mm.
Some mythological stories from Indian mythology.
Yeah.
These stories, when she used to tell the stories, the characters used to be flashing in front of your eyes. Remember those days there was no television.
Yeah.
And she used to tell it so beautifully. You should listen there and say, wow, these things happen. Now, do we make that kind of thing happen for our clients when we tell a story? Imagine if we can do that consistently. That is when, they would want to call you back again and again, again and again. Now, there are some simple ingredients of storytelling. You need some good, robust sound bites. Sound bites that people will remember much after you have left the room.
Mm.
Sound bite that they will use to, justify some of their own actions. And all those sound bites should come from the stories that you have told them. And that is the reason why you exist. That is the only reason why you'll be remembered. Otherwise, you're going to be wallpaper. But very often we swing to the other extreme. Very often we swing to an extreme where we say, oh, you know what? I have done so much of analysis, so much of data collection, so much of, looking at the data. I need to show them how smart I am. It's not about how smart you are. It's about what decisions you can actually influence. The simple rule that I have always followed, particularly in the last, 10, 15 years, is do presentations that are fact based but not fact filled. Because the
Mm.
moment you have fact filled presentations, you're going to lose the audience because they're going to be, going all over the place on your chart and looking for data. You could be telling them whatever you want, but they're not listening to you. They're looking at all the data on the screen and trying to form their own conclusions. If you
Yeah.
want their attention, have fact-based presentation with minimal facts on the table on the slide so that they listen to you and not look at the screen up there and forming their own conclusions. So, storytelling is the art of doing that without too many props. You need to be able to do that just standing up and talking, ideally without even one slide. But I understand we all need slides, but if you have slides, make sure that you don't clutter it up with thousands of words and hundreds of data points. So, storytelling is not about showing how smart you are, it's about how much you can inspire and provoke people to take actions based on whatever insight you're delivering.
Yeah. So then, how do you take those and make an insights leader not just effective, but impactful and valued by a C-suite member?
I'm going to say something that is not politically right word to use in a podcast. Yeah. Uh, I would always tell my own people that how often can you create oh shit moments for people?
Mm,
It is mission critical because the only reason why the C-suite people would realize that you are valuable is if you can bring to the table something that they did not know. They have not become C-suite level people for nothing. They've been there, they've done their work, they've earned their stripes. So they've seen a lot of the world, the business world in particular, they've seen a lot of it. What can you bring to the table which they look at it and say, oh shit, I did not think about it this way. Oh, I did not have this perspective. The more you do that, the more they want you by their side because they look good. They are challenged, and everybody loves to be challenged. And a good, successful C suite leader knows that unless he or she is challenged, they are not going to be the best that they are capable of. The one who can do that on a regular basis is the one they want around them on an ongoing basis. So, in summary, I would say create oh shit moments.
yeah, yeah. They'll want you back. Yeah,
They want you back. They want
yeah.
you back. Yeah.
So there are some skills in this field that they seem timeless,
Yep.
right? They never go out of style.
Mm.
In your view, what are some of those skills that every insights practitioner should hold on to no matter how the industry evolves?
Yeah. I would say there is one skill we need to train that muscle on a regular basis, and that is all around the ability to connect the dots. When you connect the dots, that's when a pattern starts emerging. That's when a
Mm,
painting gets completed. That is when a song is written. That is when people look at you and say, wow, I understand exactly what you're trying to say. And when you connect the dots, especially if some of the dots are things that people already had in their mind, and you connect that with some of the dots that you have with you and with third person has got, when you put it all together, that's when they look at it and say, now I see the whole picture. But sometimes we tend to focus on just the dot that we have,
mm,
i.e., the study that we have done, i.e., the specific project that we have done. And we talk about that one in great detail. It's important to be an expert in what you have done. But
yeah,
ability to connect the dot is the one that helps you to relate to people and make it useful and personable and impactful for the person who's actually receiving that message. And when you bring it all together, then they sit there and say that, this person has got a business context and not just a research expertise context. And
yeah,
therefore, connecting the dot is super, super, super important. And we have to help people to see the patterns. It's the patterns that actually make people dream about big things. It's
yeah,
not those dots. Dots are, if you look at the dots, you go cross-eyed after some time. But when you see a pattern, your mind actually starts expanding.
yeah. So the pace of change right now is, I mean, it's faster than ever. It keeps getting faster.
Mm.
New tech, new tools, new expectations. How can the next generation of insights practitioners stay relevant? And what skills do you think need to evolve or even be let go of?
I think the letting go part is probably more important.
Mm.
Because we are all accumulators, so we got to figure out whether it is at home or wherever it is. We tend to accumulate things, so
Yeah,
letting go is very, very critical. But that's a separate conversation altogether. But I think to stay relevant, you got to keep yourself one step ahead, if not at least in pace with the evolution. The best way to get that going is through reverse mentoring. For me to assume that I know everything about AI, I know everything about everything else that is going on and are likely to go on tomorrow, I'm kidding myself. Yeah. Uh, I have certain areas of expertise and I'm pretty good at that. That's okay. But then am I the best future proofed individual going around? Probably not. But there are lots and lots of young people who are really at the cutting edge. But maybe I can look at what they do and I can figure out application for that better
right,
because I've been on the block for a long time.
right.
But to be able to do that, you need to have a reverse mentoring formal process whereby you spend time with the youngsters and learn from them what is coming down the pike. It could be
Yeah,
something as simple as how to use blah, some new technology, and you will be surprised how many times you can learn something new.
yeah,
Now that keeps you young, number one. Number two, it keeps you abreast of what is going on in the marketplace. And number three, it makes you a lot more effective in terms of what you can do to do your current job even better than what you're doing today. So reverse mentoring, never ever underestimate. People generally think that, oh, am I exposing my vulnerability by saying that I want to be mentored by a junior person? No, you're not. You're actually telling people that, listen, I'm open enough to learn. And
right.
learning, the day it stops, you cease to exist as a successful professional.
Yeah. Is that how you've stayed sharp and ahead of the curve as the industry continues to evolve?
I have, I mean, in my current business, our head of data science is a young lady, yeah, and she was with me in Unilever too. Just sitting and talking to her, every time I sit and spend half an hour with her, I come away feeling that I don't know most of the things that she's talking about, and that's okay.
Yeah,
But she's teaching me, and that's okay too. And I'm learning, that's great. What more do I want? But being humble about that is the most important thing, because if you walk in with the mindset that, yeah, I know everything, then the other person is going to turn around and say, okay, you know what? You know everything. Why should I even bother spending time with you?
yeah,
But when you encourage them, I learned so much from her that I would always say, listen, Linda, if you have half an hour, spare me that time.
yeah, yeah. If you were literally writing a letter to the next generation of insights professionals,
Mhm.
what would the first sentence say and what
Mhm.
would the last sentence say?
Wow. If I write a letter to the future generation, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial here. Don't try to predict the future.
Mm,
Yeah? Help people to dream up a future. There is a big difference between the two. If you're trying to predict the future, you have a certain mindset, and that mindset usually starts with using the past to predict the future.
yeah,
In a world that is changing exponentially, help people to dream. When people dream, they actually come up with great ideas. Particularly, the senior leaders, the C-suite level people, they they are visionaries. Most of them are big visionaries.
yeah,
But if you can show them, a dream, they know how to take the dream and convert that into reality. I don't.
mm,
I'll give some, you know, examples that are quoted very often by very many people, whether it is iPhone or Google search or whatever, any of those big technological things. Those are not incremental ideas that were based on taking the past and predicting it out into the future.
yeah,
They were big, bold ideas that somebody sat and dreamt up. Now, how can we inspire that dream so that when they go and sleep at night, they are tossing and turning in their bed and they said, you know what? I heard this today. That's what this means for the business. And when they wake up in the morning, the first thing they should be doing is, pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, you came and spoke to me yesterday. Walk me through why you went through that process. What was the reason why you told me this? Because they're trying to validate whether the dream that they came up with can be made reality or not.
Right.
But the process of making them come up with a dream is something that you initiated. Help them to come up with a dream. That would be the first statement I would write in that letter. The last thing that I would say, the closing line would be brave. Now, be brave is easier said than done.
Yeah.
Particularly, I can say that, okay, at my stage in life, I can say that I'll be brave. Because I might have nothing to lose. I've had a great career and I have nothing to lose, so I can be brave. But when you're starting your career, it is always risky to be brave because if you stick your neck out, sometimes it could get chopped off. So you have to be choiceful about
Yeah.
how you display your bravery. And therefore, what I would say is, listen, poke the horse or poke the giant slowly and see how it reacts. If and that's where you learn your muscle in terms of how to be brave. You learn it, and then also remember the first thing I started out by saying nothing to lose moment.
Yeah.
Practice your bravery at scale in nothing to lose moments, because the only thing that can happen is you can come out on top. But if you lose, people know that it was a nothing to lose moment. And the third thing is, when you are brave, please align with your immediate manager or somebody, so that you have somebody to back you up, and there is
Yeah.
somebody else who has actually gone through the thought process to say, what, being brave on this situation is actually worth it. Go for it. At
Yeah.
least you have the confidence that somebody who's got a little bit more experience. But bravery is not an option. You have to do it, because the one who exhibit bravery are the ones who go further in career. The earlier you start, the earlier you train your muscle, the better you would be, and the faster your career growth would be. Because there are lots and lots of people. The ones who are remembered are the brave ones, not the ones who came and timidly presented something and went away. And people would say, Stan, who? Versus they should turn and say, oh, Stan. That's the reaction you need to create.
Yeah. So, closing out, is there one value or principle that has guided you through your career and that you'd want others to carry forward?
Passion. Passion. That, I wouldn't have spent 40 years in this industry if I was not passionate about this industry. And I have more passion today than I ever had before. Passion is something that needs to be nurtured. Passion is something that needs to be fed. Passion is something that you need to feel good about on a daily basis. And passion is something that should guide every action that you take on a daily basis. I genuinely believe that insight function is a really high order, intellectually stimulating profession. There is no reason why one should not be passionate about this profession. If we lose faith in this profession, of course it will degenerate into a non existing function.
Yeah.
But it is our passion that will make it absolutely great. So turn up in the morning, put on your running shoes, show the passion, and make the insights world run faster than ever before.
Stan, thank you for sharing such thoughtful reflections and for your generosity in passing on what you've learned. It's
Thank you.
clear that the next generation of insights professionals will benefit not just from your wisdom, but from the example you've set throughout your career. And to our listeners, if you found value in today's conversation, I hope you'll share it with someone else in their journey and keep these lessons moving forward. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Z.
Thanks for joining the Insights and Innovators podcast from Market Research Institute International. Click subscribe to never miss an episode and visit us at MRII.org for more market research insights.